I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Casterbarus.
I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time.
You might be a doctor, but I am
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you expect.
Absolutely fantastic.
All of time and space, everything that ever happened or ever will. Where do you want to start?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big on the Inside, the Doctor Who Watch Along podcast, where this week we have been watching Doctor Who Series 1, Episode 3, what's it called, Harry?
It is The UNQUIET Dead by Mark Gatiss.
Yes, it's the first episode of NuWho where we actually properly travel in time. We travelled to the far-flung future last week, and this week we've gone right to the past. Do you think it was a deliberate thing for them to go present, future, past?
Yeah, I said this in the last episode. I totally think it was a very deliberate and very smart move to have a story in the present, followed immediately by a story in the future, followed instantly by a story in the past. And all three stories really show kind of the range that Doctor Who can offer and kind of the variety of things that you can do. You can do high sci-fi. You can do kind of period pieces with supernatural / alien elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even though this episode is set in the past and it is on a sci-fi show, it is very stripped back of its sci-fi elements, I feel. Apart from the Gelf, that's the only real sci-fi thing in compared to last week's episode where it was new alien after new alien after new alien.
And I think kind of the advantage to doing historical period pieces, and I remember as a kid, the historical pieces were always the ones I enjoyed the most. I'm not sure why, but one thing I appreciate about them now is that obviously because they're working the BBC productions, the BBC already makes a lot of period dramas.
Yes.
And so they have a wealth of different props and costumes, particularly from Victorian era, that they can lean into. Like, I'm sure the BBC must have made countless versions of A Christmas Carol over the years and just dip into that pool of costumes to make a really authentic feeling Victorian, well, it's not Victorian London, it's Victorian Cardiff, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I watched The Confidential beforehand, and the production aspect of them filming outside on the streets with the snow, I thought that
Did they actually film in Cardiff?
Probably was in Cardiff, I imagine.
Yeah,
but I know
the whole.
Oh, it was
based there.
It was in Swansea. They filmed the exterior shots in Swansea, which is where Mark Gatiss is where he's from.
Right.
So I don't know if that was deliberate or if it was just a coincidence. But he said it was very good to see Doctor Who being made in the place where he wanted Doctor Who to actually live.
I did not realise Mark Gatiss was Welsh.
No, I didn't. Unless he isn't Welsh and then later moved to Wales. But I really like the range of characters that are in this episode, aside from the Doctor and Rose. I thought the portrayal of Charles Dickens is really good. I thought that looks like Charles Dickens. If I had to draw Charles Dickens, if you showed me a picture of that Charles Dickens and said, "This is Charles Dickens," I wouldn't think it was a character actor. I would have thought it was the real deal.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like a caricature either. It wasn't just some kind of trope who, spewed off different quotes or anything. Mark Gatiss really went to the effort to make him feel like, a human being who's lived a full life and is starting to, question his mortality, whether he's made a good use of his time in the world.
Yes.
And I feel like, even though I've not lived anywhere near that full life, I could totally identify with him and the humanity of wanting to make your life meaningful. Like, I really attached to Charles Dickens. I thought he was very well realised in this episode.
He has some really great lines.
Gatiss.
Yeah, he has some really great lines as well. Something he did say is when he goes and knocks on the door of Mr Sneed and they say they're closed, and he just goes, "Don't be stupid, the dead don't die on schedule."
It's great. He has that wit, and he's written with that wit in.
Yeah.
Another thing I really love is how the Ninth Doctor just starts fanboying out as soon as he realises who he is.
I like the fact he's a huge Charles Dickens fan, but doesn't know what Charles Dickens looks like.
Yeah, you'd think he's met him at least once before. Like with all that time, you'd have thought he'd have at some point gone back. But I mean, not scrutinizing that. I just love
Yes.
how the Doctor, despite being like, this larger than life character who's lived for hundreds of years, been everywhere and seen it all. It's a similar thing to how in the last episode he got excited meeting all these alien creatures, and here he gets really excited meeting this historical figure.
I think that works really well
And just-
when he introduces Charles Dickens to Rose, and she goes, "Who's your new friend?" And he goes, "It's Charles Dickens," and she goes, "All right, okay." she like just isn't phased by it.
Yeah, I think it's probably a mixture of like not being phased by it, and also if you think we've not seen Rose sleep since the start of since going adventuring for Doctor. Like she's had a really packed day. Like
Yes.
in the span of one day, she's fought waxworks. She's gone to the end of the world, and now she's in Victoria, London. There's probably a bit where she's probably numbed by it all by this
Yes.
point. You could probably throw anything in her face, and she wouldn't be phased.
Yeah, you say that, but when she exits the TARDIS, you can see she's very excited and sort of taken back by the fact that she's in Victorian Cardiff. When she puts her feet on the snow and sort of tests the ground, like she almost doesn't believe what's actually happened.
I mean, she has a line at the start of the episode, which I think was really great, where she kind of talks about how for most people, like time, like something happens and it's gone, whereas the Doctor's ability to go back to any period of time that's been and just relive it and bring that period back to life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really captures kind of like the wonder of time travel and the potential of what you can do, and really kind of shows what an amazing concept it would be if we were able to do it.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that until she said it, and it's really got me really thinking. As I was like, even though like I'm alive today and I was alive yesterday, I was alive the day after, everything else about that day is pretty much dead. Like the movements and the light and the sounds and the smell, that'd never happen again. And when you think about it, you're like, that's quite a deep thing to really go into. And she just says it in like a one sentence, and he just has it every day, and he doesn't really cross his mind. What did you think to when the Doctor tells Rose to go and get changed and she comes back and he's quite taken back by what she's wearing?
She says, "Wow, you're beautiful for a human."
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing. There are other Doctors who've kind of done that as well. I think it's kind of almost like probably some kind of, little sneaky Gallifrey they have, where the Doctor, to avoid like giving away their feelings of attraction to someone, they can just dismiss them as, for an alien species. Like, I remember later down the line, Matt Smith does stuff of a very similar vein, talking about Clara.
Yeah, because I noticed it a lot, because I remember last time when we spoke about episode 1, I sort of referred to the Doctor and Rose as quite a older brother, younger sister relationship was the vibe I got. And then from this one was when I really started to notice from that line that the Doctor he maybe did quite fancy Rose, or maybe he had slight feelings towards her, or at least found her attractive.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I am glad that it is kind of one of those relationships that you can't kind of easily label it or put it in a box. There are a lot of different dimensions to a relationship. There is a sort of mentor-teacher aspect. There is sort of a romance aspect. There is a sort of, familial aspect to it. There are a lot of dynamics. It's not a straightforward relationship. It's complicated, and it's not just like one-way adoration or like two-way adoration. There's bits where they butt heads, like later on in the episode they Rose butts heads, saying like it's not right for another being to possess a dead body. It's wrong.
I really liked that scene. I sort of found myself bouncing between the two of them, sort of going, who do I actually agree with here? Because I sort of agree with Rose, but then the Doctor's going, it doesn't really matter, we may as well do it anyway. What did you find that as well, or was you just quite...
Yeah, it surprised me just how... because I'd forgotten about just how much of that was in that episode. That was kind of a part of the episode I've almost completely forgotten about, and kind of the ethics of using, the body of someone whose life is gone to continue the life of someone else. And it's a concept. I mean, that's the great thing about sci-fi. Sci-fi allows you to kind of explore these high concepts.
I really liked
that's kind of necessary.
the interactions of Rose and Gwyneth. I thought those two acting together and the way those two characters bounced off each other, with Gwyneth's complete amusement and what's the word I'm looking for?
Amusement?
She just really admires Rose, doesn't she? Like her outgoingness, the fact that Rose, compared to Gwyneth, is this really strong, independent woman who, even though she's doing normal day-to-day stuff that is so normal of 2005, compared to Gwyneth earning £8 a year working at a funeral director's, it's unimaginable.
I think because, like, really, when you think about it, in the span of, like, all of, like, you know, the span of the life of this planet, 100 years or so, or like 200 years, you wouldn't think that much would change, but really so much has changed.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, 200, 150 years from now, even more will have changed. Like, the world that we live in will probably be so, you know, the world 100 or so years ago is just as alien as aliens.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
As I was watching, I was like, I'd really like to see a spin-off of Rose and Gwyneth living in Victorian London. Oh no, the other way around, Gwyneth coming to modern day England and Rose like having to sort of teach her how to be a 21st century woman.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much time was spent on that one scene. It's just the two of them in, was it a cupboard?
I think she's washing up, isn't she? Gwyneth's washing up, or
it was a washing up room, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, I've got like, you wouldn't expect a sci-fi show, a family sci-fi show, to commit that much time to, you know, just two women in a pre-intimate room talking. But, you know, everyone involved kind of committed to that scene, and it ended up really paying off. And it was a really engaging scene, kind of one of the most engaging exchanges of dialogue in the whole episode.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And within that dialogue, we get a second measure of the series, the Bad Wolf. Did you pick up on it?
Yes. I picked up on it this time.
Yeah, with Gwyneth, at the end, she just says, the big bad wolf. I only picked up, I wonder if it was as noticeable watching it the first time it ever aired, obviously not knowing what was to come, if people were like, why on earth is she saying the big bad wolf? But I don't really think it would have been.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I've seen a few months or a year or so ago, I watched this other watch-along of Series 1. I think it was Blind Wave, if you've ever seen them. And they didn't pick up on Bad Wolf until the next story, when it gets graffitied on the side of the TARDIS. And one of them makes a note of Bad Wolf. And then with each episode, they keep noticing the Bad Wolf. So I imagine it's the thing where kind of, I imagine different audience members kind of picked up on it at different points.
Yes.
And it might be a thing where unless you weren't taking notes, you wouldn't pick up on it. But it's really cool and it's really subtle. And I know kind of it's something that hasn't really been done in the show since in quite the same way.
I feel like they tried to do it with Vote Saxon, and then they really tried to do it again with The Timeless Child, but we can get to that.
Well, I don't know, there's the hybrid as well in Series 9, is it? Do you remember the hybrid?
I don't remember the hybrid.
In like every episode, Peter Capaldi would like find something that's like part one thing, part another, and he'd say, it's like a hybrid.
I did not ever pick up on that.
No, do you not remember the bit where it's... Sorry, I've got to say, I will probably fall into doing impersonations of different doctors at different points throughout the series. You were away partway through the last episode, and I did a really bad Christopher Eccleston impression. All of my Doctor Who impressions are terrible.
Yeah, the Christopher Eccleston one's
I'm not going to be hired. No, they're not. I remember years ago, you had me do this video where I dubbed over a scene from Rose where I voiced the Doctor and Rose.
Yes, you did. You did both of them. I forgot you did both of them. Yes.
Yeah. How can you hide something that big in a city this small? Hang on, hide what? The transmitter.
If I can find it, I'll stick it at the end of this. If you're watching it on YouTube, I'll stick it on the end of this.
Yeah, I think you took the original video down with good reason.
Yes, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we might have touched on it earlier, the side characters. I really like especially so we talked about Gwyneth and Rose, the Doctor and Charles.
And Charles Dickens.
Yeah, and then there's Mr Sneed as well, who I think he's a really good, funny character. Do you have anything to say about Mr Sneed?
Oh, sorry, you cut out partway through. I didn't hear you finish the sentence.
I'll say it again, it's fine. I'll start that whole thing again. One thing I did like about the episode is it's got a really good broad range of characters. It's got Gwyneth, who plays well with Rose, the Doctor and Charles Dickens, and then there's Mr Sneed as well, who I think is a pretty funny character.
Yeah, he works really well as kind of this comic antagonist, where really for the first third or half of the episode, he is the antagonist. It isn't the I can't remember what they're called,
Gelf.
the alien race. Yeah, it isn't the Gelf. Kind of, he's the one, like, he like chloroforms Rose and kidnaps her and no one's just go after her. And kind of just the fact that he's going to like these insane, irrational lengths.
Yeah.
Like,
I wanted to touch on that a little bit because, sorry, go on. If you haven't finished, go on.
And then, it's kind of really satisfying that later in the episode, kind of everyone else kind of just exposes him for being, the buffoon that he is in how he acts.
Yeah, he has some really good lines as well when he just says, the stiffs are very active. I feel that was Mark Gatiss writing that going, that sounds funny.
I mean, Mark Gatiss is a very funny writer. I mean, I don't know about much of his work, but I'm quite a big fan of League of Gentlemen.
Yes.
And just how kind of some of the dialogue in that is just so wonderfully absurd and bizarre in some of his situations. I mean, I remember there's one episode of League of Gentlemen that Christopher Eccleston's actually in.
I think it's the very first episode.
There's this... I don't know. I don't think it's the very first episode. It's in the first series, where there's these people who have set up, I think it's a dog cinema, which is a cinema that only plays films containing or about dogs.
Oh, right,
and then Christopher Eccleston shows up, and Christopher Eccleston has opened up a rival cinema that only shows films about cats.
Poor Christopher Eccleston.
It's great. I mean...
There was one thing
if you love wonderfully weird British comedy like League of Gentlemen, check it out.
One thing that when I was watching this episode, because it was an episode, like I said, I was thinking, I've got to watch this third episode. It's all right. I don't remember much from it. But I really started to like it. It made me think one thing, which is, why hasn't or has Mark Gatiss ever been offered the job of showrunner?
I remember... when Moffat was like in talk, like when people were thinking when it was getting to the end of Moffat's tenure, I don't know if he announced he was stepping down, but loads of people kind of just assumed Mark Gatiss would be the next showrunner.
I think I did.
Like
as well,
he'd written consistently for the show since its revival. Obviously, him and Moffat collaborated on Sherlock.
Yes,
those people kind of assumed he would. I guess. I'm not sure why Gatiss didn't want to. Maybe like obviously he does a lot of acting work as well, so maybe he would have taken too much time away from that. Maybe he just didn't feel that he had a vision for the show. I'm not sure. Maybe he felt that because he's worked a lot with Moffat, it would have been more of the same, and he wanted to see someone like shake up the show. I'm not sure.
Yes, maybe, yeah.
I mean, I'd be open to him being showrunner at some point down the line.
I definitely would, yeah.
He's an enjoyable writer.
Yes.
And I think this... Especially watching this, I think about it now. I prefer this episode more than Rose. I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe,
with
yeah.
This fresh perspective.
I'm
not sure.
I'm not sure. I struggle to rank them at the moment. But I thought what we could do is, when I was looking at some stuff to do with this episode, I looked into a bit of the history of Mark Gatiss, and it's quite interesting and strange. Would you like to listen to his career?
Yeah, I know bits and pieces. Yeah.
Okay, so he started his writing with Virgin Publishing, where he wrote a small number of Doctor Who novels. So did you know that? Okay.
Yeah, I knew he started off writing Doctor Who novels.
Yeah, I think within them he started to actually try and change some of the problems that had caused the show to be cancelled in the first place, or to lose some of its viewership. I'm unaware of what those changes would be, because I haven't read any of his stuff, but I imagine maybe making it less
I know I believe Russell T Davies also wrote some of those Virgin novels as well.
Yes, he did. Last night I was watching an interview with him and Moffat talking about the two Target books they've wrote for Rose and Day of the Doctor. And Moffat passes mention that I think one of the first times he was aware who Russell was when he saw one of his Doctor Who books on a shelf. Okay, so this is when it gets slightly strange. When Doctor Who went off the air, Mark Gatiss started writing a straight-to-DVD series called Probe, Probe, with dots in between, which was a straight-to-video series, which is classed as the first official Doctor Who live-action spin-off, but contains no characters or no strong references to Doctor Who because it wasn't BBC licensed.
Right.
So
it's like since retroactively been made canon.
Well, no. Okay, so Probe is a 6-film installment of copyright-free Doctor Who-inspired stories featuring much of the cast of the original series, including John Pertwee, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy.
I think I've heard about this. Don't they like go by a name other than the Doctor?
It's very strange. I tried to summarize them, but the films vary in length from an hour in length to only 3 minutes in length. One I caught slightly on YouTube. Wow. It's very hard to find full episodes, full films. The one I saw was Sylvester McCoy was the head of an asylum, like a mental institute. Colin Baker worked there, and Peter Davison was one of the inmates.
That is bizarre.
They are so weird. And Mark Gatiss, he stars in them and he writes some of them as well. They are the strangest 90s. They are so low budget as well. It is unbelievable. I really recommend going to watch them.
Yeah.
Because I was watching the trailer and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is this? But when you look at the VHS covers, they're all done in a very Doctor Who style to make you think you're probably buying a Doctor Who film.
Yeah, like the 90s, like for like stuff like VHSs, which were becoming like more readily available, it must have been just like the Wild West for kind of things that were being put on videotapes.
Yeah. I'll tell you what we can do, is I'll do it now, we can edit around this, is I'll send you a link to the trailer of one of these Probe films, and you can watch it, and then we can see what your reaction is.
Okay. I mean, just judging from like the fact that it's kind of this lit straight-to-video film, me and my brother are currently working on a short film, and we've done most of the shooting, so kind of I have this newfound appreciation just how difficult it is to film something.
Yes.
Like even just getting like a standard like shot reverse shot. So watching that and seeing some of like the really kind of moody shots and kind of intense lighting and dramatic angles, like I have to commend how much they were able to get out of what was clearly a limited budget, but they managed to get a lot out of their limit. They really managed to work to their limitations. It seems intriguing. It doesn't give away much about what the plot is, other than like Sylvester McCoy is this doctor overlooking a patient zero.
Oh, patient zero.
I mean,
that comes into play later on in the 11th hour because patient zero is the reoccurring.
It's prisoner zero, isn't it?
Is it prisoner zero or patient zero?
Yeah, it's prisoner zero.
All right,
yeah.
make me look like an idiot, Harry. What do?
Sorry, Sam. Sorry, no, you're the Doctor Who expert. I'm sorry, I don't know anything.
As we said in episode 1, we know enough about Doctor Who to make a podcast about it. We don't know everything about Doctor Who, so don't send your emails. Cool. So going back to the main episode. So going back to the main episode of Doctor Who, was there anything else that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet that you wanted to mention?
I mean, this is kind of a very general thing, but I've noticed this episode kind of, I don't imagine it was on purpose, but it's kind of it started what became a bit of a trend in NuWho. A trend that's been copied, not by Gatiss, Gareth Roberts did it a couple of times, whole idea of the Doctor goes back to a historical period and meets a celebrated writer of the time. Then they encounter something that's often seen in their stories, only this time it's real and it's an alien.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think it's different.
Like, obviously, yeah. And obviously, I guess Gatiss bucked the trend with this, obviously, with Eccleston meeting Charles Dickens and meeting ghosts, but actually aliens.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, Gareth Roberts did it a couple of times with Shakespeare and witches, with Agatha Christie and a wasp.
Yes. I'd forgotten about that one. Yeah.
I mean, and I guess the reason why it was repeated as a trend throughout New Who is because it worked so well this time. I mean, we'll have to wait to get to those Gareth Roberts episodes to see if they hold up quite as well as this did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do kind of, rewatching this episode, appreciate why it became a trend within New Who.
Oh,
to
no,
kind of
definitely,
do
yeah.
this story structure, because it works really well, and Gatiss really got all the potential from it out of it.
Yes.
Like, if you're going to have the Doctor meet a popular historical figure, you want them to do something exciting with it, with the period, with the character, the figure. And really, it feels like all the potential for that was kind of squeezed out of it in this episode.
Yeah, no,
So
I agree.
it was a very satisfying watch.
What
was your thoughts on the ending? How
Well,
they kind of take off?
Oh, well, I got some notes on did the Doctor kill again? Because we spoke about him possibly being the cause of Cassandra's
let's
death.
talk about that.
And then he indirectly kills Cassandra in episode 2. Episode 3, he indirectly kills Gwyneth by giving her the idea that she needs to be part of the gate to allow the girl to come through. What do you think towards that?
Yeah, and obviously he's well-intentioned, and he can't really contend with his intentions because he wasn't. I guess you could argue he wasn't to know that the Gelf were, hostile and wanted to invade Earth.
Yeah.
He was well-intentioned, and so it's hard getting mad at him for that. But that final situation where he, he offers to, take his own life to save the world, and she refuses. I mean, it's a harder one to pin on him as him being accountable for it. It was and it was equally her call to bring the Gelf over as him. So it's hard to pin it on him, but it does kind of start to set this tone of, which was established by Clive in Rose, that wherever the Doctor goes, tragedy and death follows.
Yeah, no, I agree,
and
definitely.
It kind of does help to reaffirm that precedent, and it kind of does, add a sort of foreboding sense about him, even though he does try to be jovial and excited. You do start to kind of question, is what the way he's interfering right? Is it's safe to travel and associate with him? Because you think if he never came to London,
everybody would have been fine. I mean, the Gelf would have still been there, wouldn't they? But
yeah, the Gelf would have not. I mean, I don't imagine the Gelf would have been able to attempt to take over as completely without it being a conceited effort to let them through.
Yes.
So yeah, perhaps things would have been better off if they had not arrived. But then at the same time, they did kind of give Charles Dickens this renewed sense of life and purpose, even for, the short span of time he had left. And so it's kind of that moral toss-up of, did they do good in that story?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like, if he hadn't have turned up, what's the worst that could have happened? Arguably, did
and you guys have to weigh up for,
Did did the situation end up worse off because the Doctor turned up and tried to get himself involved with it? Yeah, so...
I mean, really, you can say he brought closure to the situation. And maybe closure to the situation is better than it being perhaps not as bad, but still unresolved.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, yeah. So next week is... Well, we say next week. We're not 100% sure when these come out, but the next episode would be the first of the first two-parter of New Who.
Are we going to do it as two separate parts, or are we going to do it one big part?
I thought we could just do it as one big part.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Does that work with you?
Yeah, that works with me. One long episode about the Slovene. Oh, yeah.
Would you like to end the episode by telling everybody what they need to do if they would like to listen to more episodes?
What do they need to do? Oh, because we're on YouTube now. We know we're on YouTube now.
We're on YouTube, and we might be on iTunes by the time this comes out. We're not sure yet.
Well, for YouTube, I know that you can subscribe, you can like, you can hit that bell for notifications. I already have. Have you not seen your one new subscriber?
No.
No, it's me.
Is it? Oh,
I'm
that's
the one
lovely.
view and the one subscriber on the first episode so far.
Oh,
I even gave it a
fantastic.
like. I did the whole shebang.
Oh,
I
great
didn't.
stuff.
I like commenting. Cool vid, bro.
Oh, I haven't checked.
I haven't commented yet.
All right, fair dues.
Maybe I will. We'll see.
What do they need to do if they're listening on iTunes?
I don't know how iTunes works.
Well, you'd better take a
Did
stab
you
in
just
the dark.
download it for free?
Nope. Well, yeah.
Do you have to
but-
pay on iTunes?
Nah.
How does it work?
They just listen to it.
Oh, is it just like another streaming thing?
Yeah, but they can subscribe to the podcast.
The
if
last
they like.
time I used iTunes, you had to download everything.
Oh, well, on podcasts, you have to download the podcast, but it's free. And you can subscribe and it downloads instantly to your phone. And also, you can leave a 5-star review.
Oh, they still do 5-star rankings on iTunes.
Yes, I believe it's actually impossible to leave anything less than 5 stars.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, I guess if there's no other option, then yeah.
You may as well just give 5
But
stars.
in fact, rating lower might actually glitch the system. It might corrupt your iPod Nano.
And if you leave a review, I'll get Harry to read them out in his Ninth Doctor voice. And if you had to describe, if you had to write a review of this show in one word, Harry, what would that one word be?
Are you asking me or are you asking the Ninth Doctor?
It depends who's going to answer.
I want the Ninth Doctor to answer just so I can subject you and anyone listening to my terrible Ninth Doctor impression.
Go for it.
Fantastic. How was that?
I think you're actually
Was
going
that
to Big
worth
Finish.
it? Was it everything you dreamed?
It was everything I dreamed. So if you want more of that quality content, make sure to subscribe, like, and whatever is, I don't know. Cool. Right, we will see you again soon. Bye, everyone. Say bye, Harry.
Bye-bye.